If clothes were the language Michelle learned first, makeup became her handwriting. Loops and flourishes that turned sentences into a signature. It started quietly, as most important things do. A small cosmetics bag arrived by post on a rainy afternoon, a modest collection in soft packaging, nothing dramatic. She opened it at our kitchen table with the reverence of unwrapping a gift in a storybook, then scooped everything up and vanished into my room, where the best mirror lived. I followed with 2 mugs of tea. Now she'd changed into her after-school uniform, a pale blouse with a gentle drape, a dove-gray skirt that moved like a quiet breath, and a soft-knit cardigan the color of mist. The palette suited her. Careful, calm, open to light. She lined the items in a neat row, compact, brush, small tube, a slender wand she turned between her fingers, as if reading it for instructions. "Will you stay?" she asked, almost shy. I promised I'd be there as long as she wanted. The first attempt was tentative. She held the small mirror close, then too far, then close again. The brush kissed the powder and missed her cheek entirely. The wand made a daring sweep and then startled her when it touched her lashes. We both laughed. The kind of laughter that loosens a room. And she tried again, slower. The second pass was better. The third, confident. We began treating the vanity like a little studio. I set a lamp at an angle to soften the shadows. She placed a folded scarf on the stool so it wouldn't snag her skirt. While she experimented, I changed into something brighter. A blackberry-colored blouse and a belted A-line skirt. So she could see how different shades played against fabric. She watched everything. How the color in my blouse changed the warmth of my face. How a gold earring could wake up a neutral outfit. "It's choreography," she said, examining the effect of a rosy tint against her cool cardigan. Clothes, then light, then lines. The false lashes arrived in a slender case a week later, and that was the moment something clicked. She set the case down as if it might startle, and, with that same careful breath I remembered from the first time, she touched the red and white dress. She tried them on. It took patience. There were misalignments and second chances, a few nearly comic moments when one wing tried to escape northward. But when they settled where they belonged. Balanced, soft, unmistakably her. The entire mirror seemed to brighten. From then on, the lashes were part of her. On school mornings she'd still be in uniform, but as soon as we got home and she changed. Perhaps into a slate blue jumper dress or a tailored skirt with a blush tone top. The lashes returned like punctuation at the end of a sentence. "There," she'd say, peering sideways. "Now the outfit is speaking in complete thoughts." Mum noticed first, as mums do. She came in from errands wearing a tidy trench and a patterned scarf, glanced at the two of us by the vanity, and said, simply, "Lovely." There was no commentary about rules or effort, only that word, and it gave Michelle something more durable than permission. Ease. Our sessions developed a rhythm. I'd set out tones like a painter. Rose, coral, apricot, a soft brown for depth, a pinprick of light at the corner of the eye. Michelle started coordinating palettes with clothes the way she'd learned to coordinate cardigans with skirts. If she wore the sea green sweater with a pleated navy skirt, she'd choose a cool, polished look. Clear lines, a hint of brightness at the brow bone, a gloss that caught light rather than color. On evenings when she tried bolder outfits, the poppy red blouse with a slim black skirt, she learned to balance intensity with restraint. One focal point, never two. "Let the fabric sing lead," she said, "and the face harmonize." Saturdays became our favorite practice days. We'd plan them as if we were backstage. Clothes pressed, shoes lined up, accessories chosen, then the mirror work. Michelle rotated through her growing collection. The soft gray dress with a ribbon waist, the forest green skirt paired with a winter white sweater, the midnight shirtwaist that made her hair look lighter. She experimented with a clean, luminous finish for daytime and a gently deepened look for evenings out with friends. Nothing heavy, nothing mask-like. It was always about clarity, about aligning the outside with what she felt inside. One evening, she came downstairs dressed for casual dinner. Charcoal wrap dress, tidy coat, low-heeled pumps that clicked softly on the hallway floor. Her hair, by now coaxed into loose, easy waves, framed her face in a way that needed only the lightest touch. The lashes were there, of course, soft as a blink. Dad, in a cardigan and dark slacks, looked up from the paper and said, You look very put together. Michelle beamed, not because he'd noticed the makeup, but because he'd noticed the whole. There were small lessons along the way. How the sheen of a blouse could reflect a rosy tone more than expected. How a very bright lip asked for restrained earrings. How the collar of a shirt changed what the face needed. She discovered she liked a fresh, balanced look for work. Subtle definition. A hint of color that complemented knee-length dresses and tidy jackets. And something more vivid for evenings when she wore sharper lines and a higher heel. Clothes are speed, she said once, smoothing the skirt of a deep blue dress. Makeup is the steering. By spring, our vanity routine had become part of home itself. The clink of a compact shutting, the soft puff of a brush, the low murmur of two sisters planning a day by palette and fabric. On weekday mornings, she'd often slip on a structured dress. Ink or smoke. With a neat cardigan and polished shoes. I might choose wide-leg trousers and a silk blouse, a blazer for shape, loafers for stride. We'd meet in the mirror, adjust a seam, straighten a line, and carry the quiet assurance of that shared preparation into the day. If you ask me when Michelle became unmistakably Michelle, I won't point only to the first dress or the first heels. I'll point to the first time she finished a look and didn't rush to ask, "Is it right?" She just turned, checked the angle of her jacket against the fall of her skirt, and smiled with the recognition of someone reading a sentence she had written and finding it true. That evening, I wore a soft lilac blouse and a dark pleated skirt. She chose a light sweater in pearl gray and a clean black skirt with a fine line to it. We stood shoulder to shoulder in the mirror, similar and not, her lighter hair grazing the collar, my darker hair pinned in place, both of us content. The lashes blinked once, and she said, almost to herself, "I love that the outside and the inside finally agree." Clothes had taught her grammar. The mirror taught her voice. And with every careful brushstroke, every measured line, Michelle learned to sign her name on the day. 15th birthdays are supposed to be simple. A cake, a card, maybe a new sweater. Ours began that way, calm and unhurried, the house filled with the faint scent of baking and the soft hiss of a kettle. I remember looking across the breakfast table at my sibling, longer hair now, the color of pale honey, brushed so carefully that morning, and thinking she already looked like someone with a name waiting just behind her lips. She wore a dove-gray dress, smooth at the shoulders and belted lightly at the waist, with a soft pink cardigan draped over it. A thin chain glimmered at her collarbone. Mum had picked the outfit for her the week before, saying only, "It'll look nice on your birthday." I was in a navy blouse and straight trousers. Dad, in his usual check shirt. Nothing fancy, but there was a quiet sense that something was about to happen. After breakfast, Mum brought out the small cake she'd decorated herself. White icing, a few tiny roses piped along the edge. The candles were unlit. She set the box of matches beside it and said, "Before we light them, we thought you might want to say something." Michelle looked from one of us to the other, fingers tracing the hem of her cardigan. Then, softly but without hesitation, she said, "I'd like you all to call me Michelle." No one spoke for a heartbeat. The words seemed to fill the kitchen like light spreading across the floor. Then Mum nodded once. Dad gave the smallest smile, and I felt something in my chest ease, as if we'd all been holding the same breath. "Michelle," Mum repeated, testing the sound. "That's a beautiful name." Dad struck a match, lit the candles, and said, "Happy birthday, Michelle." It was the first time any of us had said it out loud as fact, and hearing it was like hearing a door open quietly and never close again. She laughed then, a real, unguarded laugh, and the flame reflections wavered across her face. She made her wish, blew them out, and when the smoke curled upward, she looked years lighter. Later, while Mum cleared plates and Dad poured tea, I followed her into the hallway where her coat hung. She reached for it, hesitated, then turned to me. "Do you like it?" she asked. "The name, I mean." "It's perfect," I told her. "It's who you've been becoming for a while. Now, it just has a word." She smiled and shrugged into her coat, a simple sand-colored one with large buttons. The afternoon sun caught the thread of her hair and made it gleam. "Then it's real," she said. We walked to the small cafe near the park, our little tradition for birthdays. I wore a knitted jumper the color of storm clouds and a pleated skirt. She chose her new gray coat and black ankle boots polished to mirror shine. The wind carried the smell of wet leaves, and for a moment I thought of that first day in the red and white dress, the same expression of nervous happiness returning, steadier now. At the cafe window we ordered 2 milkshakes, strawberry for her, chocolate for me. When the waiter asked for a name to write on the receipt, she answered, without pause, Michelle. He nodded and scribbled it down. It was such an ordinary exchange, yet I knew she'd remember it always, the first time the world used her name, because she'd offered it. We sat watching people hurry by, cups clinking softly around us. Do you think they'll keep calling me that? She asked. At work, at home? They already are, I said. They just needed to hear it once. She nodded, stirring the drink absently. The ice clinked like little bells. It feels like putting on something that finally fits, she murmured. Outside, the clouds shifted. The light in the window turned golden. For a moment we both caught our reflections in the glass. 2 slim girls, similar shapes, different shades of hair, laughing about nothing at all. To anyone else, sisters. To me, that word finally fit too. That evening the 4 of us sat in the living room. Mum had brought out a small parcel wrapped in pale paper. Inside was a silver bracelet, delicate, engraved simply, M15. It's for the name, Mum said. So, you'll have something to wear that says it belongs to you. Michelle clasped it on, then held out her wrist, turning it in the lamplight. The metal caught every flicker of movement. It's perfect, she whispered. After they'd gone to bed, she and I lingered by the window, looking out at the quiet street. She still wore the cardigan, buttoned to the top now against the chill. I feel different, she said. Not new, just steady. I nodded. Like the picture finally has a frame. She laughed softly. Exactly. In the weeks that followed, the names settled naturally into our lives. Dad would call. Michelle, can you pass me that paper? Without missing a beat. Mum's friends stopped asking how your son was and began asking after your daughters. Her letters from work began arriving addressed correctly. The postmark alone seemed to smile. But it's that first day I always remember. The gray dress, the unlit candles, the quiet certainty in her voice. It wasn't a grand ceremony, no confetti or speeches, just a table, a cake, and a family willing to meet her where she truly lived. When I think of transformation now, I don't picture mirrors or fabric. I picture that moment of naming. A word offered and received with love can shape a person more than any garment. And every time I say Michelle aloud, I hear the echo of that day. The match flaring, the candles burning steady, and my sister smiling through the smoke of her own wish coming true. When the final school bell rang that June, it sounded less like an ending and more like the soft click of a lock opening. Michelle walked home beside me, the late afternoon sun warming the pavement, her uniform hanging loose where it had once been crisp. She didn't speak much that day. Just kept touching the folded sleeves as if feeling the fabric's weight one last time. By the time we reached our gate, I knew she had already decided what came next. That weekend she began clearing her wardrobe. I watched her stand in front of it, arms folded, surveying the neat stacks of clothing that had carried her through childhood. The old trousers, the oversized shirts, the sneakers with frayed laces. All looked smaller somehow, because she had outgrown them in ways no seamstress could measure. We filled 2 large bags that evening. She handled every piece once before setting it aside, not out of regret but to acknowledge that each had done its duty. They were part of him, she said quietly. But I'm not him anymore. The next morning, sunlight streamed through her window as she opened the other half of the wardrobe. Her half. The colors there seemed to breathe. Pale blues, grays, soft pinks, a few bold reds. The fabrics lighter, the silhouettes drawn with intention. She stood for a long moment, fingertips grazing a favorite blouse, then chose her outfit for the day. A simple navy dress with a structured collar, the kind that suggested readiness without demanding attention. By the time she came down to breakfast, the transformation wasn't in what she wore, but in the way she moved. Shoulders relaxed, chin lifted, the quiet poise of someone who'd stopped dividing her life into after school and before dinner. Mum noticed it first. You look prepared, she said, handing over a cup of tea. I am, Michelle replied. Dad's taking me to his office later. There's a job opening. The news came as no surprise. Dad had mentioned the small firm where he worked. For people, a desk near the window, a place that valued competence over appearances. He'd already spoken to his manager about Michelle. They'd said, if she can do the work, she's welcome. That afternoon she dressed for the interview as though she'd been preparing for it her whole life. Knee-length skirt in charcoal, cream blouse, modest heels that gave her just an inch of added height. She asked me to help choose earrings. Small silver studs, understated but clear. I pinned her hair back from her face, the permed waves from months before now softened into gentle movement. When she looked at herself in the mirror, there was no trace of the boy who used to hover uncertainly in my doorway asking if a shirt looked okay. The interview lasted less than half an hour. When she returned home, she was smiling. Calm, sure of herself. They said I can start Monday, she told us, slipping off her jacket and hanging it neatly by the door. They just need someone who's organized. I think I'll fit in. Monday arrived like a new season. The house felt different that morning, the air filled with a faint scent of pressed cotton and perfume. I was in jeans and a light blouse, ready for errands, but Michelle came down the stairs dressed for her first day, a tailored dress the color of dusk, matching belt, neat heels, and a small black handbag she'd bought with her savings. She paused at the kitchen door, smoothing the line of her skirt, and said, half to herself, this is the first morning I've started the day as me. Dad drove her to work. When Michelle came home that evening, her posture told the story before her words did. She was tired but radiant, the kind of tired that comes from belonging somewhere. Everyone was kind, she said, slipping off her shoes. They called me Michelle, without blinking. One of them even complimented my penmanship. She laughed, shaking her head as though she still couldn't quite believe it. From that day onward, each morning began with the same quiet ritual, selecting an outfit for the day, steaming a blouse, choosing which shade of lipstick suited the mood. She favored clean lines. Navy, charcoal, soft rose, with a hint of color at the collar or cuff. At work she wore sensible heels, for inches at most, but in the evenings she returned to her 6-inch favorites. Her colleagues accepted her without question. Within weeks, she was part of the office rhythm. Morning greetings, shared coffee breaks, a laugh at the photocopier. They noticed her reliability first, then her eye for presentation. You always look ready for a meeting, one coworker told her. She smiled, knowing readiness had been the point all along. At home, the remnants of her old wardrobe found new owners. The bags went to charity, the drawers were reorganized. In their place, Mom helped her line shelves with neatly folded sweaters and skirts sorted by color. I teased her for having more clothes than I did. She teased me back, saying, you can borrow them, but only if you return them ironed. By autumn, the transformation felt complete. She no longer dressed as anyone. She simply dressed. Sometimes I'd catch her reflection as she passed a window, the fall light catching in her hair, and I'd think how impossible it was now to picture her any other way. The boy she once was had become a quiet memory, not erased but folded neatly into the past like the uniforms we'd both worn. One evening we sat together on the porch, the air cool, both of us in cardigans. Mine in deep plum, hers in soft gray. She rested her chin on her hand and said, do you ever miss him? The old version of me? I thought for a moment. No, I said. I think of him like a sketch. He had to exist so you could paint over the lines. She smiled. That's kind. It's true. We watched the light fade over the rooftops. She tucked her hands into her sleeves, content, and for the first time I understood that what she left behind wasn't only clothing. It was hesitation, disguise, the pause between who she was and who she knew she could be. And as evening settled, I realized that letting go of boyhood hadn't erased my brother. It had given me my sister. Don't stop now. See what happens next. Subscribe for more every week. Hit the bell and stay part of the story.